Hey guys, Ghazzy TV here with another Path of Exile video, and in this one we're going to talk about crafting. We're going to talk about crafting minion gloves, and when I say crafting minion gloves, I mean crafting minion gloves for any type of budget, as well as any type of minion build that uses rare pair of gloves, because the crafting process is exactly the same across the board for all minion builds, with the difference being the approach that you take in the midsection of the crafting process. Now, crafting can be a bit daunting in many cases, and obviously we're going to try to make this easy for you. So if you look at the link in the descriptions below, my guide hub, there is a ton of crafting guides as well as generic crafting guides that will teach you how to craft basic items in this game. And we're going to take this one step further and go a little bit more specific by showing you how to craft minion gloves. I am currently wearing a pair of pretty juiced up rare resistance gloves with minion damage and life, but no implicit modifiers. So I'm going to take this step by step and show you how to craft the low end of minion gloves, which is very simple. And that would be to take a pair of gloves and then simply use Essences of Fear. Now, the higher the tier, the better the minion damage you get on the gloves. This is a prefix modifier. A rare item can have 3 prefixes and 3 suffixes. Attributes and resistances are suffix modifiers, and defensive stats, life, energy, shield, evasion, armor are prefixes, but minion damage is also a prefix. So for minion builds, what we're looking for is a life or energy shield, depending on the approach you're running, as a prefix with the minion damage. And then the suffixes would either be a combination of just resistances or resistances and attributes, mostly looking at the dexterity. And for energy shield basis, we're looking at intelligence. So a low budget version of a glove would look something like this. You would actually take a search and do a count group of 1, for example. We can skip that process. I would start by doing a fracture life roll. And the reason we're looking for fracture life, say 80 plus, is because you can find these for literally an Alcorp, 2 Alcorps. Let me actually make sure that they are gloves like this. So you can see that you can buy these for a Chaos Orb, sorry. And you can go all the way up to 89. I can literally even search for 89 in the search function by searching for fractured plus the maximum life. And you see that I can buy a top rolled fracture tier 1 life for 3 to 4, up to 5 chaos. So why is this so good? Since the prefix is now covered with a fractured modifier, which cannot change in any cases, we can spam essences on this, so we get a good minion damage roll on this. And this is basically what I've done on my gloves. Instead, I roll these till I hit a good resistance set, and then I bench crafted HP on these instead, which will be a little lower life, but I wanted some chaos res. So you can change this fracture to anything that you feel like you want. So we can look at chaos resistance, for example. Say you want at least 30 out of that. This is going to cost you a little bit more currency, and then you can go from those things. So I would recommend crafting in these on the lower budget end to buy a fractured piece, because it will just make it so much easier. Next step would obviously be to purchase essences, which you'll do in the PoE trade as well. You'll buy the deafening essences of fear, and then you'll search for these and you'll buy whatever chunk you want. So we can try to buy these, for example. So we can prep our crafting. So we have a base, and then we're going to make sure that we have the juice for crafting it, basically. That would be 16, and we'll buy these. So now that we prepped the essences we're going to use, and we have purchased a base pair of glove that we want to be using, in my case we're going to be doing it on a Arcanist pair of glove that I had. Good, hide that, and we'll do this. I'm going to show you the low end of crafting this. So you go to essences. I have an Arcanist glove with fractured 89 life. I've already tried to craft this a little bit. I'm going to show you some process of how to do this. I'm going to talk about different variations of this and what you can do. So not to prolong this video too much, the process is spamming essence of this, but this is not everything. We need to prepare everything we're going for. So we have the base, we have the juice. Now we're going to make sure that the base is proper item level. Holding down Alt, I can see that this is an item level 85. Now, why does the item level matter? So in here, in craftofexile.com, I've chosen the Arcanist gloves. And in here, you can see the item level of what the resistances, for example, or even intelligence, or let's say dexterity. The item level section here will tell me that 85 is the highest item level, or the lowest item level I would need to hit the highest tier. So the tier 1 dexterity requires 85. My gloves have 85, and dexterity is a very attractive modifier. That's why I want to have 85. 84 is okay, because that's the highest you can hit for resistances. So you want to make sure that when you search for these gloves, you also make sure that you get the item level that you're looking for, which you can scroll down and search for item level right there and click in 84. And now you'll see that these gloves are costing a little bit more. If you do this with a fractured life, for example, just to give you an idea of the current prices at the time of the recording, we can do this and say I want the perfect life. These are going to cost me about 10C. Whereas if I bring this number down to 85, you'll see that they will be significantly cheaper. So now that we prepped the base, we know the item level, we know why we have the item level, and we have a fractured base. The process would now be to literally spam these till our heart's content. So now we're going to decide what modifiers am I actually looking for. And what I'm looking for is a life roll, which is already secured. I'm looking for minion damage, which will roll between 28 and 30 from the essences. And I'm looking for a combination of elemental resistances, chaos resistance, and dexterity preferably. And so what I'll do is I'll use this on the item, and in here we have accuracy and maximum life, completely terrible. Here we have a really good outcome in my opinion. We're looking at a tier 1 dexterity roll with a decent fire rest. This has an open suffix modifier, which now allows me to bench craft another rest if I want to, and these gloves will be really, really good. For the sake of transparency of what that would be, it would be about 55 resistance. We can look at a 45 dex with HP and minion damage, and that doesn't exist. If I lower this down, will that exist? No. If I take away the dexterity, they're going for 80 chaos up to about 2 divines. Obviously, this is completely overpriced considering the fact that the grand total of money I just spent on these was about 10 chaos for the base, and I spent 2 essences. Obviously, that was a little bit lucky, but you're going to be spending a lot less crafting these yourself than buying these. The only time you want to buy gloves is if we're looking at these big dick gloves. We're talking about situations where you're running a spell suppression gloves on evasion basis for poisonous arrest. These gloves can be a lot harder to hit the reasonable numbers on to get a high dexterity and or having a high spell suppression with life and whatnot. So you have that possibility as well. Obviously, you could search for a fracture spell suppression and say you want that at, say, 13 at least. You'll see that these cost quite a lot more when you're looking at proper item level gloves because of how popular poisonous arrest is, as an example. But that's an option. So what I'll do here, I would literally just bench craft another resistance roll on these, and these gloves will be insanely good, and I barely spent anything, and that would be the baseline low budget craft for this. Now we're going to take it one step further and go into on the next step. The next step for something like this, I'm going to put a bench on it just to get some rest. Great, perfect. So now we have a pair of really juicy gloves. They have 64% resistances, 89 life, and 58 dexterity. Absolutely crazy good. The next step here, we can actually go back to Craft of Exile, and then we can scroll all the way down to the Searing Exarch implicit as well as Eater of World implicits. Now, there's an easier way to do this, and that would be to go to Path of Building, in my opinion. I think it's easier to see there. And I can look for an Arcanist pair of gloves by searching for a pair of glove near, Energy Shield, and look for Arcanist gloves, and then put the influence, Searing Exarch and Eater of Worlds, add implicit, and then I can search for it here as well. So there's different ways you can go about the search functionality of this. So what we're looking for is, in most minion builds, we're looking for effective marks. This is an Eater World. This first step here is actually the lesser Eldritch Ichor. The next one is 8 to 9%. That would be the greater. And the next one is the grand. And then it would be the other one, whatever that one's called. And to get the next step, you would have to use the Orb of Conflict. And the problem with Orb of Conflict is that they can be very expensive to do, and that's for higher budget versions. 16 chaos to lower the one part of it, and the other part would be upgraded. It's not going to go too deep into that, but that's how you would upgrade these marks. So most minion builds, they would either go for spell suppression combination with something, but without the spell suppression, we're looking at effective marks in most builds, and we're also looking for minions deals damage generically, which would be up here, which is from the Searing Exarch implicit. To hit these, I would literally just use these orbs, and depending on the tier you want, you'll use the higher cost of these. So these lesser ones are going for almost nothing. The greater ones is going for almost 1 chaos each, and grand, for example, on these are going for 3 chaos each. So this is how you can ramp up the cost of these things and make the gloves even better, which is also one of the reasons why they cost more, because it's RNG to hit these. You'll have to spam them until you get the numbers that you want. And these things become implicit modifiers, as you can see here. I'll put one more. Do I have anything within numerical value? These things can be rerolled like this. Has 9 up to 10 global accuracy. You can reroll that value with a blessed orb because it is an implicit. Another thing you can do when you're going for the really high version of these type of items is that Once you have an Eldritch influence on these items, you can start using these orbs here. That is Eldritch Chaos Orbs, it's Eldritch Annulled, and Eldritch Exalted. The Eldritch Chaos Orb, what it does is that it will Chaos Orb the item, but only reroll one side of the item. And that would be either the prefixes or the suffixes. So this is something we use mostly for the super high-end energy shield-based gloves, where you try to get perfect energy shield with minion damage. And once you've done that, you will do the appropriate influence to be the highest tier that makes the Chaos Orbs reroll the suffixes instead, allowing you to spam that to roll those attributes or resistances instead. And obviously you can do things like prefix can't be changed, Veil Chaos Orb crafts if you really want to do that as well. The Annul is obviously something that if you have two good suffixes and one really bad suffix, but you don't want to risk your prefixes, you can also use an Eldritch Annul by making sure that the Eldritch Annul hits the suffixes when you secure your prefixes. So there's a lot of things you can do for the super high-end budget. I don't want to go too deep into this because it's kind of advanced. And the same thing with Exalted is if you want to slam that, but we only use this if it's cheaper than the Exalted Orb in most cases. Anyways, this is the generic approach of how to craft minion gloves on the low and medium budget and high end, a little touching on the high end at least. Hope you guys had use of this video. If you do, hit the like button, subscribe for more content, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Till then, stay safe. Keep fucking rocking.